U.S., NATO allies prepare for massive military exercise as Russia watches. About 20,000 U.S. troops will soon begin flooding into Europe as part of a massive, months-long military exercise that has been compared to the massive drills of the Cold War era, drills that were meant to help NATO forces beat back a hypothetical invasion from the Soviet Union. Though U.S. President Donald Trump has criticized European countries for not contributing enough to NATO's budget, in the spring of 2020 the United States will signal its resolve to defend its NATO allies by deploying the largest number of troops to Europe since the Cold War. Resembling the NATO REFORGER exercises before the fall of the Berlin Wall, the U.S. Army will send a division headquarters, 3 tank brigades and scores of other troops, totaling 20,000 American soldiers, to Europe for what will be the largest American-led war game on the continent in 25 years. Elements from the U.S. Air Force and Marine Corps will also participate. The war games, named Defender Europe, will see U.S. equipment arriving in Europe this month and the exercises being held in April and May. According to Reuters, U.S. Maj. General Bar Seguin at Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers Europe said the exercises, centered in Germany and Poland, will underscore the U.S. commitment to NATO. As part of the exercises, the U.S. Army will assess its preparedness to move soldiers overseas to the Netherlands and Belgium and then east through Germany and Poland. After joining thousands of U.S. personnel stationed throughout Europe and 18 other NATO allies' military forces constituting around 37,000 troops in all, the U.S. forces will return to the U.S.
There was a lot.
We have not demonstrated this ability to rapidly reinforce from a transatlantic perspective for 25 years or so, Seguin told reporters. NATO officials insist that no individual nation is the target of the massive exercise, but private analysts say the Kremlin will be taking copious notes as the forces deployed. Readiness is not only about having the right forces and capabilities in place throughout the theater. It's about exercising our ability to quickly receive forces with our own and those of our allies and partners. Lieutenant General Christopher Cavoli, commander of U.S. Army Europe, said in a statement. This ability is critical in projecting force at a moment's notice. Our readiness reassures our allies and deters potential adversaries. With its history, its location on Russia's doorstep, and its strong support of U.S. military operations in the region since becoming a NATO member, Poland is expected to play a major role in Defender Europe 20. This exercise is not just symbolic. It gets to the heart of what we mean when we talk about collective European security, said Georgette Mosbacher, U.S. ambassador to Poland. In a crisis, NATO must be able to respond as quickly as possible. Defender Europe 20 simply could not happen without Poland. Bradley Bowman, senior director of the Center on Military and Political Power at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies (FDD), said he was asked repeatedly on a trip to Germany late last year whether the Trump administration still had an interest in the security of Europe. He said Russia President Vladimir Putin, or any other potential adversary, will wonder if the U.S. is militarily capable of rapidly sending a large number of combat troops to Europe, and whether Washington has the will to do so. Defender Europe 20 is an opportunity for us to signal the political resolve of NATO, said Mr. Bowman, a former Army officer, and National Security Senate staffer. The U.S. has been rotating troops through Europe on a regular basis since Russia seized Crimea from Ukraine in 2014. It has conducted several short-term exercises, such as Sabre Guardian, in Bulgaria, Hungary, and Romania. But Sabre Guardian focuses on tactical missions such as vehicle road marches, river crossings, and air assaults. Planners say Defender Europe 20 will be a strategic, high-level mission with a far greater sweep. While Russian activities like its conflicts with Ukraine and Georgia may have prompted U.S. officials to dust off their Cold War plans for countering the former USSR, NATO officials insist Moscow is not considered the enemy for the exercise. Defender Europe is not directed against any particular country. NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg told a European Parliament hearing late last month. This defensive exercise demonstrates the ability to rapidly move a large force from the United States to Europe to help protect other NATO allies if needed. He added NATO nations need to stand together and address many common challenges. Russia has every right to feel safe within its borders, but so do our member states, Mr. Stoltenberg said. The US is not leaving Europe. The United States is actually increasing its military presence in Europe. Some of the soldiers coming from the US will draw their vehicles, which includes a variety of vehicles, like Humvees and M1 Abrams tanks, from one of 5 sites throughout Europe known as Army pre-positioned stocks. Army officials estimate about 13,000 pieces of equipment will be issued for the war games. Analysts say Russian leaders are likely to have as much interest in the supply and transportation end of the exercise as in any particular troop maneuvers. President Trump was clearly no fan of NATO on the campaign trail, but has implemented policies such as increased funding for the military and supplying Ukraine with actual firepower that was a major change from his predecessor. His administration has dramatically improved U.S. military readiness. By and large, there's much to applaud, the FDD's Mr. Bowman said.